We literally felt like we were put on this planet to service this one, passion. And if we didn't do it, we would regret it.
Welcome back to the show. It's been a crazy few days for us. I mean, we've just spent the last 2 days chatting to a bunch of Olympians. That's been really awesome for us, just sort of going under the hood, speaking to Aussies going to Tokyo, learning sort of what they're doing in the training, how COVID's changed that. Yeah. And a lot of them, we spoke about their mindset. That was really cool, just listening to how they're taking it all in and processing and preparing as well for the show. And this is all going to be released on the 18th of July. We'll release it, and then it'll slowly come out from then on as well as the games continue. On this episode, we're chatting with Jade Spooner, former Google employee who let it all go to go all in on Equalution with her business partner Amal. Recently featured on Forbes 30 Under 30, just a small business magazine, just a very small magazine. You may have heard of it. And not long ago, she released her own book, I Do Not Diet, and just started her own podcast. Welcome to the show, Jade.
Woo! Thank you for having me. That was a really good intro. I think following the big Olympian stint, I think it had to be big. I was thinking I'm no Olympian, so
yeah, but 30 under 30 is got a pretty resume. Nuts. So,
you've got a great resume, and you started off at Google, which is sort of where most people want to end up at, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. It was a great journey. I definitely learned a lot of what I carry today in both like work ethic and then also my working environment and just company culture from Google. It was a phenomenal place to work. Everything that you think it is, it definitely is.
It seems to be that everyone wants to go to Google for the culture. I feel like it's the big bean bags. It's the big open co-working spaces that everyone wants to be there.
Yeah, they dream for it. The foosball tables, that relaxed but yet productive environment.
What was that like?
Yeah, it's really cool, but in the tech space, particularly, a lot of startup companies and whatnot in Australia and even like America, beginning, in Silicon Valley, a lot of that culture is coming through other companies too. So it was very much a Google dominated area in terms of that, relaxed culture and sort of the people first, and then the rigid productivity and all that kind of stuff after. But now it's kind of, I think culturally, like things are changing, and that company culture is getting very much prioritized in a lot of other companies as well.
It seems like everyone's sort of started to take a look at what the big companies were doing, Google, and have started to shift their priorities towards it. And I think it's cool to see because it seems like a better place to work.
Oh, it benefits everyone. Working for a company that actually cares about you being like comfortable and happy. Yeah.
It seems to make sense. And then from there, you decide, or were you already working on Equalution at that point?
Yeah. So when I was working at Google, I was in the marketing department. I was selling the ad space and putting together marketing campaigns for companies in the AdWords sector. And I was running Equalution on the side with Amal. So she was also at Google. She was in the experiential product domain. So she was doing all like the JB Hi-Fi retail experiences and things like that in Google. And we were doing Equalution on the side. I think at the time it was making maybe $800 a week or something. And we just kind of, put our heads together and thought, imagine if we did this full time. And then we were also like hugely passionate. We just were thinking about it day and night and sort of doing it in our lunch break and on the train to work. So we just sort of put two and two together and thought something's got to give. And I think we want to take this full time.
How long did it take to get to that point of, should we make the switch here?
Explosion.
Yeah.
I honestly think we were doing the two jobs for maybe max 3 months. It was pretty instantaneous. As soon as we started Equalution, we were just like, yeah, this is it. Fortunately, at the time, we were both living at home, and I think that makes things a little bit different. So, we didn't have rent to pay. We just had, cars and our phones and whatnot. But other than that, our responsibilities were pretty limited. So that gives us, the world of opportunity just to be brave. So that's what we did.
So you were thinking, worst case scenario, we're still at our parents', which isn't that bad. And then the upside is whatever you want it to be.
But funny.
So
that's right. It's funny. Like, I never thought of like the worst, like both Amal and I never thought worst case scenario. Running out of money or not having it or not being able to make it just never crossed our minds. I think we just really just doubled down and thought, if we're doing something we love well, then it's just going to work. I think it was maybe a little bit of, young and naive about us, but I just think we just never really considered, the worst case scenario, which, yeah, as you're right, it's not that bad.
Do you really think that it's young and naive, or do you think it's winners are going to win? Because over the Chatting with Champions project that we've been working on,
which is the Olympics
thing, we've been seeing a lot of, certain mental equals certain success. Like, you're saying that you might have been young and naive. Do you honestly believe that? Do you really think deep down your heart that you were destined to win because you believed in yourself?
No, I do believe that it was a mindset that both Amal and I maybe always had. I just think about maybe other parts of my life and things like that, and I'm in no way, shape or form, an absolute superstar, and I've still got ground to cover, and I'm a work in progress. I would never say I'm perfect, but in the same breath, I don't think that there's a lot of things that are out of my reach. Like, I'm really one that sort of thinks if I just try or just give it 110%, if it doesn't work the first time, I'll go again. And even now, nothing says that Equalution is bulletproof. It could fail tomorrow, but if it does, I'd go again and do it all again. Just probably make a few different choices.
Yeah.
So I do think it's an inherent mindset. I think you're right. And as I've gotten a little bit older, I've sort of rubbed shoulders with a lot of like-minded people, and I find that athletes are very similar. In their approach just to life and their sports and all that. And so I've really gelled with a lot of high-level athletes and a whole lot of high-level business people as well. So, yeah, I definitely think it's like something that people have. Yeah.
That's really awesome. And I 100% agree with you because, yeah, once I think you achieve a certain level of success, your friends start to the tide starts to rise and everyone around you starts to grow. But when it's just you and Amal, how was that? Because I'm guessing you've probably got people in your corner telling you not to leave Google because it is fucking Google.
Well, it's a sure thing. Why would you leave a sure thing when you could use it to leapfrog onto something further? I mean, sometimes that risk taking that entrepreneurs like yourself undergo, it can be so against the grain that everyone, like you said, is in the corner going, hey, stop that.
Be careful now.
Yeah, be careful. That's silly.
Yeah, well, like? I remember at the time in the online coaching space, Lane Norton was leading the market. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he's kind of like the macro god of America. And he was just everything he said was just gospel. He said it with such conviction and confidence, and he had the PhD backbone behind him. And it was just kind of like he was just the bee's knees. And he was like, a decade studying PhD graduate, and Amal and I started this nutrition company as uni dropouts. She did a business degree and I did a law and media and communications degree, and we dropped out because we cracked a code and we were doing it for people with no experience. And I think the odds were not in our favor, but I do believe that we were driven a lot by mindset, and we were just both like, fuck it, block out the noise, like we were pretty fortunate in the sense that if there was anyone that was going to say to us, anyone that was going to stop us in our tracks, it probably would have been our parents. And I remember I had a really funny conversation with my dad where he was like, so you're going to leave your 6-figure job at Google, we're quitting law, and you're going to start a nutrition company and you're not a nutritionist. Right, Jade? And I know it sounds, and I was like, Dad, I know it sounds mad, but I know it's going to work, So I had a really funny conversation with Dad. Mum kind of hugged me, supported, go for gold, Jade. And the same with Amal's parents. So if there was anyone that was going to stop us in our tracks, it was our parents, but we just never really had a lot of roadblocks. If there was any backlash or sort of blockages that we got on our journey, it was just really critical people in the industry. The industry is quite a judgmental one. We were both bodybuilding at the time as well. So we were kind of like, we're not pro status. We didn't place, we didn't win trophies or take it out or anything like that. We both were overweight people that lost a lot of weight and then competed as like a self, gratifying, like the last thing on our weight loss journey list, just sort of thing. So there were people in the industry that kind of point fingers and were very much like, these two girls shouldn't be doing this, but those two girls did it. So I think that was, we were the only two that were going to stop us, I think.
I think that's so interesting that you validated yourself by losing the weight, then you competed, and then you're like, everyone can go suck one. I'm going to go make this business work. And the two of you just went all in on it, because you do have to make that big call of like that all in. I think you're so brave to leave a 6-figure salary to go and tackle that, because, probably I'm sort of in your dad's mindset of keep that 6-figure, keep it nice and safe. But it takes some big guts to turn around and go, you know what? No, I'm going to risk this for the biscuit. And it's paid off,
Yeah, I think in saying that too, the industry was really volatile at the time. So we were up against pretty much like pro athletes coaching the ordinary person. And we just saw a huge gap. Like we just saw a lot of fitness models that, were eating chicken and broccoli and working really well with their 6 meals a day that were probably about 200 calories each and, one cheat meal a week. And then they were trying to facilitate this for the ordinary person with a bad relationship with food. And we felt like we had an obligation through the knowledge and education that we'd acquired, that we had to give this service to the people that we knew best, because we were those people once upon a time. So I think there wasn't only an opportunity from a business perspective, but I think that there was like an ethical obligation that we felt we had as people that, as spiritual and as woo-woo as it sounds, we literally felt like we were put on this planet to service this one, passion. And if we didn't do it, we would regret it. That's kind of how we thought of it. Yeah.
So how did you go about then becoming the authority figure in the nutrition space, not being nutritionists? How long did that process take, or is it still happening?
Well, so basically the step was, after we quit the full-time job at Google, is we were using MyFitnessPal, which was absolutely riddled with bugs, and it was just a really poor user experience. And we were also manually,
I use it right now. I didn't realize that there was other options out there, but yes, it is riddled with bugs. It is not the greatest.
It is. I'll need to put you on the Equalution app. But essentially what happened was we're using MyFitnessPal. We fucking hated the user experience. We were also writing manual
as well. Sorry, MyFitnessPal, the UX is fucking shocking. For such a widely used app, it blows my mind.
The data is inaccurate, so it's user-generated data. So you type in, oh, Siri's having a go at me. So it's user-generated data. So essentially you can search an egg and you'll get an egg at 40 calories, an egg at 80 calories, an egg at 120 calories, all sorts of eggs. And you're like, what the fuck is an egg?
So that's actually, that is so interesting you brought that up. So I've got 4 colleagues at work, and all of us are on our different journeys throughout the gym, different weight loss, different performance goals. And yet we're all using MyFitnessPal. It's because we're all naive. We don't really, we're learning. Long story short, our biggest gripe is that, yes, there is so many different calorie options, so many different breakdown options for the exact same shit. And so we've actually come together, the 4 of us, and being like, okay, what is actually the correct one to use here? So hell, if there's another option out there, we'll be trying it, because I completely agree with you. It is a space that is, like, I guess, extremely user directed, and it's not always correct.
Yeah, I'll give you a hot tip as well with MyFitnessPal. So before we created the Equalution app, we actually started to preload all our own entries in. So if you search like egg Equalution, or even if you just search Equalution in the database, there's a whole heap of accurate Equalution entries that will come up. So we were piggybacking off MyFitnessPal for a long while. But what we were doing was we were creating these meal plans in MyFitnessPal. We were pulling them up on the webpage. We were copying the meal plan. We were putting them in a Word doc. We're taking all the MyFitnessPal branding out. We're inserting the Equalution branding, and then we're sending it to the client on Facebook Messenger. That was our process before we developed. That is hustle. That is
hustle.
Facebook Messenger blocked us because we were creating too many chats and they thought that we were spam accounts. It was just, we had all sorts of road blockages. But essentially one day Amal phoned me, and this is when we we're still at Google, and she's like, Jade, fuck this. We need an app. There's only so many meal plans that we can create manually. Like, we're going to actually run out of, scalability. Like, we're not going to be able to scale this thing, So we're going to have to create an app at some point. So we quit when we quit our full-time jobs, we went and we got a one-way ticket to Silicon Valley, and we went to San Francisco because we heard that that's where apps are made. So we
tech capital of the world.
Yeah. So we heard this is the tech hub of the world, and this is where we're going to create our app. Well, we got to San Fran, and obviously we were, 21, 22. We'd had all our savings from Google. We blew that like we were just had money growing. We had money growing off the trees. Anyway, so we ran out of money, but we did attend the startup grind when we were there, which is a Google powered event. And I actually don't think these speakers would all ever be in one room together again, because this was like 7 or 8 years ago when tech started to move. Uber hadn't even come to Australia yet. And we were hearing from the founders of like Twitter, Uber, Lyft, and all in one room. And it was just really funny for us because it just dawned on us that we were like these little fish in this big pond, but our story sounded so similar to these tech guys. Like, they were like, they saw a problem, they identified it, they were maybe their first clients. They were suffering, so then they filled the gap with something that they'd created, and then they started servicing the masses with this solution. And it just sounded so similar, but we didn't know the American market. So originally we thought we were going to launch in America, but we ended up running out of money and also not really understanding the American market or where to start there. So we came back to where we knew best, which was Australia. We just started doing free transformations for people. So that's kind of how we got our credit points in the industry. We just started doing free transformations and just posting them online.
Wow, that's fucking awesome. I love the story of just going straight to where it's happening. It's sort of like the movie star's dream of, I'll move to LA and hopefully get a movie gig. But so when you were there, was there anyone you were trying to connect with or learning from what Uber was talking about, or
was it hands in all the pies?
What were you taking from that trip as well?
Well, it was funny because when we got there, in these couple of day events, they always schedule networking opportunities in there. So you'll be in like this big auditorium and they'll say, okay, you got 20 minutes. And people are just hustling. Like, you see people that are like bringing out little like MVPs and prototypes, and people are showing little like inventions that are micro-sized, and they're just trying to find investors, and they're just trying to find that one person that's going to say, I back your product. I back you as a founder. I'm going to invest. Come to my private equity firm. I've got a bunch of VCs in there to throw money at you. That's really the dream that people imagine. Not Amal and I. We went in there and we were like, we stood out like sore thumbs because most of the domain was like male, right? So we were just, our cohort was mostly male, and then with like these 2 Aussie girls, we look like salt and pepper. Amal's about yay high, and she's brunette, and I'm blonde, and we were just stuck out. And
you're so far away from the stereotype, it's not funny.
Yeah, we're really far from it. And so we were actually getting approached, and I mean, I don't care what their intention was. They want to talk, so I was happy to talk. And anyway, so we were getting approached, and we actually got a few offers. And we got pitched an opportunity to go to an accelerator program in Texas. And we thought about it for a little bit, but the thing with accelerator programs in America is they take a portion of your company. So you get the ticket in the door, you get a grant, you get mentorship, and you get the opportunity to be investable at the end. However, they take a fair chunk of your business, and we just weren't interested in that. So we set our nose but got our ego filled, and then we got on a plane and came back to Australia. And that was the first thing that we did, is we enrolled in an Australian accelerator program. So I guess that was the sort of direction that we acquired from the Silicon Valley experience, is that, Australia was very much behind, but I think we had a roadmap that we didn't really have before. So we just needed to get, when I say money in the bank, it wasn't really about, piling up the dimes. It was more a validation piece for us. It was just like the more clients we had, the more validation we had that our business model was working, that our product was wanted, our service was needed, that sort of thing. And then once we got our strikes on the board, we put ourselves in the accelerator program at Sydney University, and that was a really good experience. It was just the mentorship that we needed. Amal and I were it's hard to stop us in our tracks or tell us that we're doing anything wrong. So it was good for us to just take a step back and listen to someone that had a bit more experience than us.
Wow. If you're listening right now, we're giving away 1 copy of Jade's book, A Donut Diets. The first listener to DM our Instagram at Outspoken Show, 80 Whole, 20 Soul, will win a copy. And don't forget to come back to the program to hear what's next. So going to Silicon Valley, did you know what you wanted when you went there, or you were just hoping money would get thrown at you, or you were still just learning at that point?
The funny thing was, we wanted to build an app and we didn't even know where to start. At the time, tech in Australia, and even now, it's pretty immature. Yeah. But at the time, very much so. Like, if you wanted to build an app, there was very few people that could do it. You know, I know of some really great devs now, but even so, I think they've only got, their runs on the board in the last maybe like 4 years or so. So rewind a little further, 7 years ago, it was a really foreign space. We just really wanted to know how you build a goddamn app. Like, there was like very few people that could give you a very direct answer. And I think it's because it was the unknown, but in Silicon Valley, they were doing it with their eyes closed. So I think that's what we wanted to gain from that. And even when we worked at Google, like, I remember we had a few, gurus and whatnot in our teams that we asked and said, like, how do you do this? And we just never really got a straight answer. And I think that's why that was what we sought when we were over there, is we just needed like a bit of a roadmap, and even pricing, right? Like, when we first got quoted for an app, there was some people saying it was going to cost us 200 grand, and then some saying it was going to cost us $500,000, and then et cetera, et cetera. And we just didn't have any clue. So I think we wanted to become a little bit more educated.
So through the accelerator program in Sydney, that was what ultimately got you the app? And that was for an equity piece, no?
No, God, that was a disaster. It was good in the sense that, like, you know what it did? The accelerator program in Sydney University was really good for probably a super tiny seed business, like one where they're still trying to narrow down what their vision and what their mission is. But I think for us, because we were now, putting the feelers out there, we had clients, we had a process, we even had a pricing model. People were paying what we had set for our service, and they were happily doing it. We had a ritual on like a weekly check-in basis with our clients, and things were like systematically working for us. Whereas with the accelerator program, they would have been able to hash that out of us had we not had it yet. But because we had a revenue, recurring revenue model business, we just didn't really need the accelerator program. It was just more of like, we just met some really cool mentors that were like super inspiring, and we met some great people that were, starting their own tech companies, and people that were in tech companies like Canva and Atlassian and all that kind of stuff. So it was more just like surrounding ourselves in a different environment that was really beneficial for Amal and I. We are both, high frequency operating energies. And I think for us, we need that high vibration to be able to operate at that level, or else, we can just kind of like feel a bit stale. So creatively, it was a thriving environment for us, but productively, it just like didn't really do us any favors. So we met up with this team afterwards, and they said they could build our app, and they charged us 10 grand, and the app was just an absolute flop. It was hilarious. The UI UX was just atrocious. Bless their souls, they gave it their 100%, but it was just way too hard. There is so many algorithms and like the ins and outs of the Equalution app. So this was highly complex. But then we met another guy also through the accelerator program, who put us onto this company in San Francisco that was like the middleman for a company in India. So then we did the offshore experience, and that was 300 grand, and that failed. And again, they gave us the app. So we got the app in the end, and pretty much because you sign your life away, you just have to take these failed experiences with a grain of salt. Like, there is no, redemption or anything like that. It's like, it's just you've done your dash at that point. So we got the app back, and they were, the algorithm had spit out like 20 grams of Nutrigrain with like half a liter of milk and stuff. That's when I say it doesn't work, it didn't work. That's the sort of non-working kind of functionality I'm talking about. And then eventually we found another company.
How are you funding it at this point? So you've spent 10 grand on the first version, 200 on 2.0.
Yeah, we just we were bootstrapping the whole thing. So we had clients,
100% bootstrapped.
100% bootstrapped.
Wow.
Yeah, and then version 3, Effort 3.0 version like 14 or something. That's the one that's on the App Store today, and she's a beauty. So we got it third time lucky, and a few $1 million later.
Do you know what I love is that I think that story is a real highlight to how important your networking is, because never once did you attend an event and you're like, yep, that's my person that I need to be in touch with to organize this app. You got put from door to door to door to door until you really like developed your networking and then finally end up at the end product. I think people who are venturing into business or who want to make apps, who want to make this new tech, they just think, yep, I'm going to attend this accelerator program. I'm going to meet the mentor who's going to set me up and we're going to create this business. And it's definitely not the case. I think your story really highlights that.
That's what people think with uni as well. That's like one thing that, okay, well, if you don't get too much from the degree, but at least you're networking. But if you can't network away from uni, you're not going to be able to network at uni. Like, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference.
I think the whole networking experience is a great one for a few reasons. I mean, one of the best things I got about networking is there were so many people that told us it wasn't going to work, and we just that was like fuel to our fire, you know, like not in an arrogant way. It was and not in an arrogant way. It was more so just like it made us even more motivated, because we were just like, these people don't know. They don't know what is, you know, behind a world of flexible dieting, you know, and being able to eat what you want and lose weight and hit your macros and guarantee results and all that kind of stuff. Like they don't know what's coming at them. So I think it made us, you know, there was a few insights that we got from mentoring that we probably wouldn't have got if we just stayed in our garages and just, you know, operated off our laptops. So it was a really great experience, and we really learnt from failing. So I think that was another great thing that came from it as well.
Well, were they legitimate concerns that you were getting from other people, or was it sort of just people doubting your ability to execute?
I think it was always something that we always got told repeatedly over and over again was, you're trying to build a tech company, but you're not tech founders. So I think that the failures were kind of, they kind of fed into that, you know, idea that we weren't capable. And we did agree to a certain extent, and we went hunting for a CTO for so long. We've only just hired a CTO this year, but we went hunting for ages, but it was kind of like a marriage, you know, like it takes a while to find the one. And if you don't, you can't settle.
And you weren't when you see the Nutrigrain with 500 mils of milk, like, how does that feel, like processing that and going, okay, like you can't just add less milk and then it spits out a better result. Like, how are you processing that information going, oh, we've got to go again here?
Oh, can I be honest with you? Like, there's not a lot that would phase Amal and I. Like, we were pretty happy-go-lucky. And in the meantime, it's really important to mention as well that we had a really well-functioning business. So much so that people also told us that we'd be mad to turn it into an app, because you're taking away from your bread and butter, and you're making this amount of money, and you've got this amount of clients, and you can have a nice little safe haven, but you guys are choosing to ride a tornado. So I mean, like, yeah, I think there was a lot of things that were working against us. So I think the logistics of the app were probably, just another thing, and we just took it really lightly. We're also like, I know this is quite a controversial thing to say. We definitely have gotten a lot better in our more mature years of business, because there's a lot more at stake now that we have so many employees and whatnot. But we were pretty, I don't really, got to choose my words right here, but We were fairly blasé about money, and not in the sense that we just had too much to care. It was just sort of like our purpose was a little bit beyond any sort of financial loss. And I know that sounds a bit silly.
Not really.
But it was, we would have had to lose a lot of money or get in a really sticky situation before we gave up, because we just had such a loud calling. And yeah, so we were pretty, I think, losing money and stuff like that, we were just like, oh, here we go again. So yeah, made it easier.
How did you reach that calling? Because you said not 2 minutes ago that you and Amal are very like spiritual people, and you feel as though it is your calling to be the middle point between like professional athlete and just regular Joe Blow, and you wanted to piece yourself and your business in that midpoint. Did the two of you talk throughout this journey and build that spiritual, I guess, consciousness together, or was it that each of you brought that to the table and then you realized like, oh shit, we really have the same belief in mind, this is going to work?
I think it was a little bit, it was sort of the unspoken until, I guess, push came to shove. So, until we got into rooms with investors or rooms with mentors at accelerated programs, or buying a ticket to an American event or something like that, that we really saw, the passion in each other, because it was one of those things that was kind of like the unspoken assumption. It was like, okay, you feel it, I feel it, let's just go with it. We never sort of got together and, held each other's hand and was like, this is it, this is what we're meant to do. It was nothing really super grounding or breakthrough like that. It was more just like, I do remember when we first started flexible dieting, and we came from a super restrictive dieting background. And in that very first week, I was eating cereal and ice cream, and Amal was having like a sandwich for the first time in like 5 or 6 years. And I dropped a kilo, and she dropped like 600 grams or something like that. And we were literally mind blown, like full on, like how the hell is this, like, even, how does this exist and the world does not know about it? Mm-hmm. So we had a few moments like that. And even throughout we did a few pitch events as well, where we did one for Australia's #1 startup, which we won. And that was probably about 5 years ago. And we had to do this big pitch deck and, sort of stand in front of, people and say, 95% of diets fail. And the reason why they fail is because they're restrictive and they're this and they're that. So there was a lot of moments where our passion surfaced, but we never really had a sort of like hand-holding moment where we were like, this is for us. It was just kind of like, it just was how it evolved.
Were you the first people to say 95% of the diets fail? Like, where did that start?
I think it was a stat that we pulled from Google, and it sounded hot. So we were just like, well, let's go with this. and we're pretty sure it's true too.
Yeah, well, speaking about that, we were doing our research, and obviously the two of you have undergone a huge fitness journey. Run us through some of the restrictive diets you've at least attempted throughout your journey, because, I mean, the three of us, we've all tried some dieting to a certain extent. Currently, my partner and I are on seafood diets. We see food, we eat it. We eat within moderation.
That's COVID for you.
Yeah, well, we eat within moderation, and we obviously don't go crazy with it, but like we have fun with our food and then still reach our fitness goals. We count all of our calories and all that crap. But, what was it like for you going on that journey? Because I personally know that's not always fun.
No, it was awful. And I think that's why we were so passionate in the end, was because we were two girls that had a completely tarnished relationship with food, but we were foodies. Like, at heart, we loved food. Like, I have a huge sweet tooth. Amal is from a Lebanese family. Like, food is like at the core of their existence. And we also were two girls that exerted a lot of effort into our diet and training, and then were sort of not reaping the benefits because scientifically we were just, not hitting the mark in terms of, what adequate nutrition, requires. But the most disheartening diet that I ever did was clean eating. And I think that was the one that probably entailed the most sacrifice and hurt my soul the most. And it was the least rewarding, because I got bigger and bigger by the month. Like, I calorically was eating way above my means, unbeknown to me, but I was just growing. I was such a big girl. I was thick. I was solid. I started developing like huge muscles, and it was just really confronting. And it took a long time for me to actually lose the weight through flexible dieting and look petite again, because I just porked up so much clean eating, and I was eating so damn healthy. So I think that was, I was eating no carbs. It was a really high fat diet now that I think about it. And all my protein sources were really fatty, like salmons and nuts and things like that. So I was just a real battler. That was probably the least fulfilling diet that I tried. It really hurt my heart.
Wow. I mean, just to change the pace a little bit, actually, one thing I saw on your Instagram page, there was a snippet from a podcast of you and Amal, and it blew my mind because I think Amal might have said that the dates have just like 200 calories per date or something, was it? It wouldn't have been 200, surely. What is it?
So basically the first post that we did on Instagram that actually took Equalution viral was 4 dates versus a bowl of cornflakes, and it was a huge bowl of cornflakes, and calorically there was like a massive difference between the two. And then another one that took us off was 150 grams of nuts versus 9 Tim Tams, the 9 Tim Tams being lesser in calories. So we started, that was like sort of our approach, was things that were blowing our mind we put out there as like education pieces, not to say that one was better than the other, but it was just to start to instill in the market that caloric awareness, which we'd seen so dominantly in America, but Australia just hadn't quite caught on yet. So we were just kind of sailing in these seas where everyone was promoting clean eating, and it was just a really hard, sort of stereotype to swim against, because people just had a really clouded perception of what healthy was. And if you said, what's a healthy diet to a lot of people, even today, they'll tell you chicken, broccoli, fish, asparagus, eggs for breakfast, no carbs, all that kind of stuff. So I think as well, while that perception in the market still exists, then my purpose still does too. So that's a really important piece too for me.
The dates specifically blew my mind, because from dates to apricots to prunes, I probably have from 2 to 3 kilos a week.
Yeah.
Like, I am bad. I'm very bad with dried fruit. So I'm like, holy shit, how much am I eating? But that was funny.
I think that's so true as well. You don't necessarily, like, when you've put up a post and you've made a very clear-cut comparison between the two, it's eye-watering, the difference. And like Luke said, I don't think that many people actually know the difference. They've sort of just grown up. They've been told, okay, eat healthy. If you're hungry, go eat a bit of fruit and veg before dinner. It's like, if you eat dates and you've told your kid from a really young age, oh, you're hungry? Here's a few dates, here's some dried fruit. They will just, they're obviously going to pack on a bit of size because they're full.
Just the misinformation
is, they're full of
I remember
misinformation. Yeah.
I remember having it's so funny because when we became educated on the science of nutrition and how the body recognizes food in not good or bad, but for its macronutrient value, we both had a little bone to pick with our parents, because Amal was like, my mum fucked me up as a kid. My mum fucked me up. So she was really overweight, and she said that her mum just like gave her the worst food. Now she thinks that it, like, calorically was just through the roof. And I even had a little go at my mum because she had this whole theory where like you couldn't, like, she wouldn't let you eat something unless you had a piece of fruit first. So sometimes we're having like 9 pieces of fruit a day.
Yeah.
That's literally what I got told as a child. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to eat something healthy first.
So she would make us almost like double eat. And I'm like, you would have just been better to give us the muesli bar instead of like 5 pieces of fruit beforehand, you goose.
Yeah.
Have you thought about targeting that audience, being that misinformed parent? Because I feel like that is probably where 90% of people's knowledge on food comes from. It's the relationship with their parents when they're about 10 years old, 15 years old. They're starving. They're ready to kill a horse and eat it. They're like, Mum, I am so hungry. Feed me, please. Or like, Dad, like, I need 4 meals within the day. Do you think that's sort of somewhere that you need to venture into with your business and target a bit more?
I think it's definitely the byproduct of reaching a greater audience in general, because the way that I kind of see it is we educate more people than they're educating their families. And, the amount of couples that are on Equalution and sisters and mother and daughter and all that kind of stuff, the more the merrier, and the more people that are learning, the more people that are advocating. So rather than go after, the parent that is just genuinely trying, we'd rather educate the society as a whole. So I definitely think that there's like opportunity for that in a sort of like domino effect kind of way.
Yeah, that's that organic growth that you're focusing on. That's so interesting that, you're finding wins with that, because we the three of us were talking about it the other day. There's so many different platforms out there that now like solely focus on their organic reach, and it's making waves in the industry.
So when you first started, I was listening to one of your podcasts, and you mentioned that you were DMing sort of athlete influencers to get them to try the app just for free, just to get their thoughts on it, get their takes, and hey, if they did share something about it, perfect. How are you going about reaching out? And you also mentioned the app because you wanted that because that's scalable. DMing, and I do it a lot to reach out for guests. Isn't that scalable?
Yeah, it's to be honest with you, we got a lot of no's, obviously. So a lot of your DMs just kind of go, just straight into the outbox.
Requests, and they never get seen.
Yeah, and then they never get seen. But that was like our stab in the dark to reaching a greater audience, was just sort of like, just go after someone that, is heard and has a voice, and then they could speak to a wider audience than we could speak to. And then, eventually as we grew an audience of our own. So on Instagram at the moment, I mean, it's not huge, but we've got like 270K followers, and, that grows. And we've got, TikTok and a newsletter subscription list and all that kind of stuff, ex-clients, current clients. So just over the years, like that data kind of grows, but it does start from, you just have to plant the seeds in a few different domains and just see kind of like what works. Another thing that really worked for us was reaching out to PTs. So we used to reach out to PTs and say, we'll service your clients. And then we used to give them a little clip for, the acquisition. And that was something that worked as well. But it was a bit of a numbers game. We were hustling for a long while.
So then from DMing people on Instagram, what was your DM strategy? Did you sort of refine? I've sort of played around with it. Is it making sure that first line that people can see is actually something that attracts their attention more so than a hey Jade or hey James or whatever, and then wasting those two words?
We used to really go after people that were actively speaking about their diet on Instagram. So I remember one of our most successful influencers was Sky Wheatley, who was in the Gold Coast, and she was she was an ex-Big Brother, like beauty blogger at the time. And she was great. So she was struggling with binge eating at the time and very transparently spoke about it on her platforms. And Amal and I just reached out privately, from our own Instagrams, and just said, hey Sky, I love your content, but we have seen that you've been struggling with your diet, and we've got the answer. Like, give us a shot.
Were you verified at the time? Were you verified at the time? No? Okay.
No.
It still works, yeah.
I think, So, we just gave it a go. And I think we backed us. So we just assumed people would be mad not to try Equalution. And then another strategy that we've implemented with marketing is user-generated content. So we do a lot of client reposts and stuff like that. And it really creates this sense of contagious FOMO sort of thing. So when people see other people, on the bandwagon and having success with, this
starts to social proof everything.
Yeah, it starts to validate, maybe I'll give it a go. And I think that was sort of what we're doing. We're just really consistent. Like if there's any sort of, advice I can give for anyone who's in the hustle phase, it was just, I'm 7 years down the track, but we've sort of done very much the same thing day in and day out for 7 years. And along the way, taken a lot of no's and a lot of hits, but just kind of got back up the next day, dusted off the knees and put our backpacks on and gone off and done it all over again. So yeah, I think that was key.
How did your role change throughout the 7 years? Because
you can't always be DMing if you want to run a company. I mean, that's not feasible.
Yeah, no, it was, because I did it up until literally a fortnight ago. So I wear a lot of hats, and Amal does as well. And we've definitely had our fair share of breakdowns and breakthroughs throughout the 7 years. I remember when we turned tech, and this is something that I've only just really recently started to speak about, but I felt like I'd lost a child, and I was going through this like crazy grieving process, because the business that I knew and grew and was familiar with and was so comfortable for me was no longer even recognizable. And I really struggled grasping tech, because a lot of my role became somewhat redundant, and I kind of had to re-find myself in my own company. It was a very strange feeling. At the time, I was about 27. I'm 29 now. I was about 27. I just sort of felt as though I'd realized that I'd missed the boat for like marriage and kids and stuff. I haven't, but that was my mentality at the time. That was my mentality at the time. And I just like kind of panicked. I was just like, shit, I've just put all my eggs in this basket in this business that like doesn't even recognize my name anymore. And I've got to find myself again. And then I've got to find myself in general, because I've just been all work, no play. And now I don't even have a boyfriend or a family or, you know, anything like that. And it was just, it wasn't even just that my role had changed, but I had changed throughout the journey as well. So it's been a big learning curve. And even now, like, you know, I'm on leave at the moment and I've never taken leave before. This is my first little spurt of leave in 7 years. And the purpose for that is because I'm going to start consulting. So, you know, what I thought was going to be my bread and butter for all my days has now kind of become, I guess, the vehicle to really what I'm hugely passionate about, which is business. And so like it was the Equalution show for a long time, and I'm still hugely passionate about it. But one thing I've realized is that in going through this experience and having success with it, it's kind of like cracking a code. And if you crack the code, you can take that formula and you can apply it to other businesses. And just like I would have been, you know, sort of robbing people of not telling them the secrets of nutrition, I feel the same obligation that I felt 7 years ago with business. You know, I sort of see. Yeah, exactly. So I guess like from a growing perspective, there's been a lot of discovery, but there's also been a lot of self-awareness as well. So I think that's been hugely, you know, navigating throughout the whole experience is just really being just honest with yourself.
Would you say that this, growth mentoring, is that, I guess, like that's your new calling? Would you say that it's as strong a passion as when you were trying to promote this like healthy dieting, healthy lifestyle? Because like you said, it was your first little baby that you've grown, and sometimes you can't replace that.
It's the way I kind of compare it is kind of like, I'm sure that there's parents out there who have one kid and think I surely can't love another again, and they have a second one. They're like, oh my God, I love this one as well. And I don't have a favorite. I very recently just started working with brands and very recently started speaking about business on, you know, podcasts and things like that. And I had the same fire in my belly that I had when I used to get on stages and talk about nutrition 7 years ago. And for me, that was a really it was a really fulfilling experience, because it wasn't one that I think would repeat itself twice. You know, it's kind of like the old, you know, finding your soulmate type thing. That's not something that people experience many times over in a lifetime. And I was sort of getting those same jitters that I got many years ago. So look, young, fresh enthusiasm for business, I don't think comes as easily when you get older. I think when you get older, you know, like even though I consider myself, I'm going to start another app as well, and I still feel equally as ballsy as what I did when I was, 21, but I'm not as flippant as I was back then. You know, I'm sort of thinking about overheads, and I'm thinking about, you know, timelines and doing things quicker and more efficiently and with less resources and things that I wasn't thinking about back then, because I was just like, let's fucking hit the accelerator and go.
Is it also because you've started to hit the goals that you sort of had in mind when you were 21, that you're like, okay, I've sort of done everything that I had in mind, and then you start to look around? Is that what it is as well?
I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like the goals are getting bigger and achieving them is getting harder. Yep. I mean, like, to be honest with you, I have a really a great business that is profitable and like it would.
It's killing it. Simple as that. It's killing it.
It would do well on maybe like the stock market or something like that. But I don't even have a house yet. And like, so I sort of like as much as it looks like, everything is like all together, I'm like, no, like the goals are actually quite big now. Like it's all the eggs were in this basket and now I've got to go and repeat that again. And
I find that super interesting. There's a fella that I watch he's a retailer, a real estate guru, Grant Cardone. He has 7,000 doors that he owns, different commercial, residential properties. He rents. He doesn't own at all. Now, he's got a reason behind that. But I'm finding it super interesting that a lot of these really high-end entrepreneurs like yourself, you guys have sacrificed so much. And now, what you are somewhat calling like later in your business life, you're starting to hit these goals. I mean, hell, Gary Vee says that 50 is the new 20. There's a lot of these people who are in your shoes who are advocating for hard work, dedication, sacrifice, wait, success. Now start building your fun. Now start building the lifestyle you want. Are you sort of like put yourself in that spotlight?
Look, I've definitely done things non-conventionally. And there would probably be accountants across Australia that would, call us crazy or something like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, we've retained full equity of our business. And I think that is a great achievement for something of our size and with the tech overhead that we've had. So definitely kudos to us for that. In saying that as well, we also we also had great experiences along the way. We were of the mindset, we weren't frugal with our cash at particular times. And as much as, I would probably not carry on like that now, I think, something had to give for working 20 hours a day. And then, if we wanted to take a business class flight to, LA and go shopping for a week and then come back to Australia, then bloody so be it. We're going to knuckle down and work 20 hours a day again for the next God knows how long. So, I would do things a little bit differently now. I think security is hugely important. I think like there's only so much that risk taking can fuel. But in the same breath as well, like, I'm so for that whole mindset of just like, double down, work hard, build, worry about stuff, a little bit later.
Just go sort of full send.
It sounds like you're getting ready to sell.
Not anytime soon, but an exit. I mean, every founder has an exit strategy. So, I think, I don't think that, I don't think that would be anytime soon.
Yeah,
but I think it's definitely something that's on the cards.
Did you go into it as well with the exit in mind? Because I think you said on a podcast.
Never.
No? Oh, okay. I thought I heard on a podcast that you didn't want to attach your name to it just in case.
Yeah, we did think that because I think we were advised that by someone, but exiting was just not really conversations that we used to have. And, even now, like I'm sure our goals are as founders are a bit different, I think Amal will be Equalution till the day she dies. And I think that I'm like a slutty founder with wandering eyes. Kind of like, I'll probably hit a few things.
So We Trained, is that something you want to talk about, or is that still?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about We Trained.
So this is 2.0, Equalution 2.0. This is the new thing.
This is 2.0. See, this is like, that, like my glow. That is exciting because this is the sort of feeling that you don't think you'll experience over again. But so basically, We Trained was something that I came up with mid last year during COVID. Essentially, I just kind of found myself reposting my workouts with my Apple Watch all the time on Instagram. And I ended up developing a concept where it sort of like takes that and it feeds it to an Instagram feed. You're able to book sessions with trainers through the app. You're able to book sessions with friends through the app. It connects to calendars and schedules, and you can take payments and all that kind of stuff for sessions with trainers. It's like a little
is it a social feed fitness trainer?
It's great.
It's like a hub thing.
Yeah,
that's really awesome.
It is. It's very cool.
I was gonna say, I like the way that Strava takes fitnessing into like an Instagram post way.
Yes.
But integrating that with coaches is a really fun way. And and Strava's UX isn't that great. And
sure, yeah.
And I'm sure like the MyFitnessPal, if you were to draw a comparison. So what else is coming along the WeTrained path?
WeTrained is so far away. Like, I haven't even started dev for that yet. Essentially, I'm on my own with it as like today, but I don't know if I want to find a co-founder potentially, or maybe even just a CTO. So I'm not really sure exactly. There's a few things that I have to, and that's why I decided to take this leave as well, just so I can kind of, knuckle down and talk to a few people and just kind of see, where I want to take WeTrained. I really believe in it. I really, really believe in it. So that's kind of where it's at the moment. It's quite far away, but I think there'll be a lot of B2B opportunities in WeTrained, and I think there'll be a really heavy B2C component as well that's hugely driven by socials.
Do you know what I like about this this idea is that we're sort of seeing, I'm sort of noticing a lot of positivity re-emerging in the fitness industry. There's recently a lot of social media stars. They're pretty much shutting down and shaming negative comments. They're basically saying, you know what, we don't need this crap out here. Just be positive, because at the end of the day, everyone's just trying their best. And I like the fact that you're considering this more like community style appreciation and recognition, because I think when people are going through their fitness journey, they lose sight because they don't have anchor points in the community. They feel alone. They're just like, oh fuck, I just give up. This is too hard. I don't have anyone supporting me. I don't have anyone training with me. I don't have anyone encouraging me.
The kudos on Strava. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, it is. It's an ego boost. And I think it's really fantastic that you're acknowledging that and sort of reinforcing it, because a lot of people thrive off it.
Yeah, so what was the inspiration for WeTrained is so in Equalution, we deal with a lot of just everyday people that are just trying to be that 1% better daily, to just accumulate a overall better health position with consistency and a bit of time under their belts. And my obligation, I feel, as an advocate for health and fitness, is to encourage in whatever capacity progress looks like for different people. And for me, when I train, I hit the red zone and I just absolutely send it. But I also think that it's equally as admirable for a mum of 3 kids to find 30 minutes in her day and, take a 4-kilometer walk or something like that. I think that it needs to be celebrated. And when I say celebrated in a tech sense, that means gamified. So it encourages continuation. You know what I mean?
Yes. 100%.
So that's what I'm hugely passionate about. And that's something that has taken a little bit of self-discovery and a little bit of workshopping in my own time. Is I was very, very Equalution focused for a lot of my days, and rightly so. It needed me and I needed it. But coming out the other end now with a business that is in that scale up phase, it's a mature business. It's kind of like my kid is off at university. Coming out of that, I've now realized that I'm hugely passionate about health, and health isn't just nutrition. As much as it's a huge driver, it's not the be all and end all when it comes to health. You can have a great diet, but you can be somewhat unhealthy,
mental and physical. It's 2 senses now.
Exactly.
Appreciate it and realize more.
Yeah, exactly. So so in innovating the tech space and in innovating health and fitness, that's what I'm aiming to promote. I just would love a healthier society.
How do you take a step away to sort of to figure out what the next step in WeTrained's journey is? How do you sort of figure that out? How do you brainstorm what's next?
Well, logistically, it was a little bit difficult because I had to palm off my tasks. And that was like a little bit hard because it required me to just have a bit of faith in things working without me there, which was like a little bit of a hard pill to swallow because obviously, you know, you don't think that anyone can do your job like you do. But at the end of the day, everyone is replaceable. Even the founders of companies are replaceable, which is why they go on and get sold and get taken over. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, no one probably would speak about Equalution like Amal and I with the conviction that we both do. But in the same breath, you know, like there's you know, staff that can do our day to day without us there. I'm pretty lucky in the sense that Amal and I have been pretty open and honest with each other throughout this entire experience. You know, like I remember voicing back in the days when we were building tech, like I just feel uncomfortable and I'm worried that, you know, I'm not going to find my place here and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, we were able to have really like honest conversations with one another. Even, you know, as of late, when I've kind of said to her, I feel really passionate about other things, which is kind of scary for me because I thought I just had, you know, one child that needed me, but I feel like I can have more babies elsewhere. And, you know, like we've never kind of stopped one another. And I think we've been for each other exactly what we needed from day dot, which was just be the yes man. Like, don't stop each other. Like, and the same thing, you know, for her, if she came to me tomorrow and said, Jade, this is not going to happen, but she came to me tomorrow and said, Jade, I'm having a mental breakdown. I need to take long service leave for 6 months and figure myself out. I just step right back in and, you know, pick up the pieces and do what I had to do because that it's like parenting, right? Like that's, you know, if two parents, you know, fall out of love or separate or something like that, they don't just abandon the kids. They do their duties and pay their dues and, you know, make sure the kids get raised.
You guys sound like an unbreakable team. This is freaking awesome. And I think that's what I honestly believe.
How would you feel going into retrained without Amal?
Yeah, people need a team. So yeah, solo is a bit tough.
I feel like in Equalution we're stronger together, but I feel like that next chapter we should be individuals. So as much as we've done a great thing in Equalution, I think that was our thing together. It's kind of like two parents that separate, but they've had a child, and then they say, you know, mum and dad are not married anymore, but like we had you, and we love you. Yeah. So I think that's where we're at the moment. We're really different people. We have a huge amount of like love and respect for one another, but I think we've got sort of just different goals, and that's fine. That's really fine.
Yeah, it's not to discredit all the hard work and achievements you've had. It's just to say that task is now done and there's something bigger, better for the two of you. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
It's really awesome. It's been great speaking to you. Just quickly, one book recommendation. One book recommendation. I've seen in your Instagram highlights, got a few great ones. Other than your own, of course.
Yeah, I'll be my own. I've read a couple of bangers. God, I've had some good books in the last. The Law of Attraction was my most recent one, and that was a great read. So yeah, the Law of Attraction was a really good one. Game Changers, a really good one, and The Courage to Be Disliked, also quite good too. That's one of my faves. Yeah.
Just quickly, the 4 Agreements. I was just recommended that one recently, and then just sort of prepping for this as well. I saw it on your highlights. How's that book?
I've only just started that one recently. It's a really brief read. You could fly through it, but I got a bit distracted, so I haven't finished it yet. But so far so good. I'm very in tune with all that kind of stuff. I love it. Froth on it. I love a bit of nitty gritty. Like one of my mates just gave me a really great book on growth, and you know I love all the business strategy ones, but I also just love those spiritual ones too.
Yes, I wouldn't say I'm a spiritual person, but I love the law of attraction, and
I'd say you are, dude. You're very in touch with yourself.
I hate the word spiritual though. I know.
Really
just
so
like that,
but
and it's candles and it's rocks.
It can mean different things for different people, you know,
that's
like
what I was trying to highlight.
it doesn't always mean like sage sticks and crystals. But you know, it can even simply, like, you know, I remember I have this friend of mine who is really spiritual, and he first introduced me to like meditation and just like a lot of self-development and inner work and things like that before I even had any touch point with it. And I remember like every time I used to say I'm lucky or something like that, I used to be like, oh, you know, yeah, I know, I'm so lucky. He used to say, no, you're not lucky. This was meant for you. Like that sort of mentality. It was
you've earned the luck. And even
so it's just when you start to become aware, a lot of things make a lot of sense.
100%. How did you get turned on to that as well?
It was more just kind of like something that happened as I think I was becoming lost. Like the more lost I was in this world that I had literally fantasized about, the more I found grounding in other areas that happened to be, you know, just things that were not materialistic or quantified or business related and things like that. So I started finding joy in like non-monetary and material things. And I just really started to understand that a lot of those things were just who I was, that I just forgot a long time ago. I know this sounds very deep, but like even simple things like I moved away from the area that I grew up in pretty early on in my business journey, which was just kind of a little bit of like me, I guess, growing up and out and into this bigger world that I was trying to create and whatnot. And now like I'm kind of considering moving back there, back to where I'm from. Exactly. And like, you know, one of my favorite things, I used to love going shopping, and now I hate going shopping, and I love playing golf with my dad on the weekends. And just how the tables have turned has been a whole heap of coming out of this world that I was fortunate enough to be part of, but didn't feel like I belonged in. And then I found kind of myself elsewhere, which really was home from the beginning. So it's a lot of like discovery, I think.
That's really awesome. And it was that point, was it 2019 you said you were feeling lost? Was it that time you're referring to? Or 2 years ago, sorry. And then
I was like
full U-turn.
Yeah, I honestly, like on paper, I was just absolutely killing it. And like, I felt guilty because I was like, I would have absolutely dropped to my feet and just kissed my own feet years ago and said, you did it and well done and all that kind of stuff. But there was just a lot of emptiness about it. I wasn't in touch so closely with my family, who I'm super, super tight with, because I was just working all the time and I wasn't seeing my girlfriends, and I didn't have much of a work-life balance, and I just felt mentally really foggy. I was working super hard, but there is only so much your business can fill internally. Yeah. So I think I needed to learn to become me outside of that space.
Wow. That's really awesome. There's a heap of takeaway points there. I think that you've really opened a lot of eyes, especially for our audience. I think that the people who watch really do like to take away some of these really valid points, like, you know, work-life balance and growth and things like that. So yeah, absolutely nailed it.
Great way to end the episode. Jade, how can people get in contact or follow your journey?
So my personal Instagram is Jade Spooner. So like the spoon you eat with, plus an E and an R on the end. And then you can follow Equalution on Instagram too, which is EQUALUTION. And yeah, just slide in our DMs if you'd like to get in touch for nutrition, and myself, if you wish to talk about, you know, business or have questions or anything like that. Love to hear from you.
That's awesome. Great talking with you, Jade.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.